Zilele Biz, așadar, în cea de-a doua zi, ziua dedicată inovației. Eu sunt Toader Păun și mă bucur să vă fiu gazdă pe parcursul acestei zile și mă bucur să-l introduc pe primul nostru speaker de astăzi. Please allow me to switch to English for our first guest today. You know for sure his name, and probably if you don't know it until now, you should search it on Google, or you should learn more about this person, because he's a professional certified coach. He's a well-renowned speaker, and today he's with us on stage on Zilele Biz, Paul Renaud. Welcome.
Thank you.
Who do you serve is the team proposed by Paul Renaud, an innovative way of looking at teams and how to create a high-performing leadership team.
Thank you, Teddy. Thank you. Thank you. Bună ziua tuturor! În primul rând, mulțumesc Marta și Gabriel pentru invitație. Sunt pasionat de tot ceea ce reprezintă inovație și leadership team coaching. Și nu sunt nou din Zilele Biz, am văzut speech-ul meu acum 2013, a fost Snow Camp. Atunci a fost mai frig atunci. Da. I'm going to switch to English. Why? Because I'm not going to terrorize you, because the last time I spoke too much Romanian, Marta was taking a beeline, coming at me and says, "No, don't speak Romanian." That's a long time ago. But I'm very happy to be here. But before I start, I want Gabriel, if you can come up here for a second. I'm going to display leadership team, and I'm going to give you a few examples. But this is completely unprepared. He has no idea what he's doing here. But I want to tell these people what I like about you. You're calm. He's organized. Every time he says he's going to do something, he does it. And he's just a great, great partner. And I wanted you to know that, because when we come here and speak, we expect things to mess up, right? Not all the time, but it happens, right? But with you, I am in complete control. But I wanted you to know that I really appreciate what you do for Zilele Biz and for Biz and with the team. So thank you, Gabriel. I appreciate it. Thank you. Gabriel Baliga, huh? There's a reason why I'm doing that, not because I'm a nice guy, but it's part of what I want to talk about today. Innovation is not only about Teslas and Amazon and Google, it's about how we treat people. And I want to spend a few minutes with you to talk about leadership teams. But before I do that, I want to use an example. Who do you serve? The concepts this morning, it's like a fireside discussion. I'm not going to be very complicated, but they might be a little difficult to apply. But I want you to think about, who do you serve in your business? Now, if you're a startup, doesn't matter. If you're working for a multinational, ONG, doesn't matter. But who do you serve? And the best example I want to come up with is this fellow called Barack Obama. He introduced, 3 times you really hit me as a speaker. The first time, and you have to watch this on YouTube, it's a video of him getting ready to support Hillary Clinton. And it's about fired up, as in fired up. Get ready, right? Fired up, time to get ready. So it's a speech that he prepared before going on in this one wonderful location. And things were not going very well, but he met this one lady and she said, fired up, and that got the whole team fired up. But the other 2 things that he mentioned to me is, at one point, he says, if you're not happy with what's going on in your country, grab a notepad and a pen and start asking questions. Go knock on doors to ask questions. And the third thing he did is that, well, clearly, when he speaks, he's just an amazing speaker. Now, when he doesn't have the teleprompter, you're thinking, well, can he really do ad lib? And yes, he can do ad lib, because one of the first things he says is, I'm the President of the United States of America. I serve my people. Whereas this person doesn't really serve anybody. He serves himself. Do you remember this moment when he walked in front of the Queen and she's wondering, what the hell just happened here? But if you ask Donald Trump, Donald, that was a gaffe. That was not the right thing to do. He'd probably say, well, listen, I'm the President of the United States. She'll have to adapt. Clearly, Trump does not serve anyone. But I wanted to show two examples when it comes to serving. Now, serving, you could say, well, I'm the boss. Why should I tell my employees I'm serving them? That's the whole point. The whole point is you are the leader. When I congratulated Gabriel earlier, we all know who the leader is in this organization. It's Marta. Just because you serve your employees, your clients, that doesn't mean that you're not in charge. So I want to talk about leadership teams. And there's a great book I want you to read. It's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. There's like a pyramid. At the bottom is trust. But Lencioni's quote is, not finance, not strategy, not technology, it's teamwork that remains the ultimate competitive advantage. Both because it's so powerful and so rare. That's why I'm in business, because it's rare. We all have teams, small teams, large teams, but do they always work? No. When they don't work, as a leader, you're supposed to find the reasons why they don't work, but sometimes you'd call a guy like me to come in and help you. The stakeholder. So, who do you serve? Message number one. The message number two is the stakeholder. Does anybody know what I mean by the stakeholder? Can you tell me? Bravo. Everyone has a stake in your business, your endeavor. So, stakeholder is, okay, so let's assume you're working for a multinational, you've got a boss, your boss is a stakeholder, your peers are stakeholders, your direct reports are stakeholders, your indirect reports are stakeholders, your individual contributors are stakeholders. Your clients or customers, depending on what you're doing, are stakeholders, and strategic partners or investors are also your stakeholders. I'd like to think that I'm not a supplier to one of my clients, I'm an actual strategic partner. Who are the people that your work serves? Are the people your stakeholders? Now, the word's not complicated, and at one point I said this to one of my Romanian friends. He says, shareholder. I said, a shareholder is a stakeholder. So, why we talk about stakeholders in the team, the leadership team coaching I'm about to describe to you is because when we're talking about stakeholders, we forget about the friction that we're having, you and I, and we're focusing on what's most important. It's often a mechanism to defer dissension, to defer conflict. The next question, what would they value of the work we've done together? So next time you're having an argument with your peer, and you want it your side, but of course your peer wants it on their side, ask yourself, are we really serving the stakeholder by having this discussion? I'll give you two examples. Marketing and sales fight all the time in organizations, right? Marketing wants to try to get more visibility, sales are trying to get more clients. So there's often a very healthy debate there, but often it's one side versus the other. The question is, what does our client want? What does our investor want? What does our team want? That's a better question to ask yourself. I'll give you another example. It's part of the book I wrote, not too long ago. I was having a disagreement. My boss says, I was in a sales team, and he says, okay, who wants to give part of your budget to Francois? Now, I was managing a fair-sized team in Ottawa, Canada, which is where I'm from. My peer was handling Quebec City, but Francois was handling Montreal. Of course, Montreal's a much bigger city. So our boss says, who's going to share their budget with Francois? And we're going, not me. And my peer in Quebec said, not me. But if Francois didn't make his sales target, we, as a group, would not make our target. His market was 3 times the size of ours. So Luc, my boss, said, if you don't get your budget, we don't hit our target. So the stakeholder in this example is not me. not my peer from Quebec City. It's not Francois. The stakeholder is the team, the overall team. If we said no way, and my peer in Quebec City said no way, we would not have met our objective. So that's what I'm thinking is when it comes to working in teams, a stakeholder focus is one way to make tension disappear. So let's go over them. You see them behind me. We've talked about it, regulators, investors, the community. Maybe your product that you're launching, your innovative product, has a resilience or sustainability angle. Maybe your stakeholders, not so much the people buying it, but the community will be enjoying your product. Customers or clients, depending if it's a professional relationship or not. Staff, as I mentioned. Suppliers and partners, and the more than human environment. That's what I want us to focus on this morning. Who do you serve, and who are your stakeholders? Let me go back here a little bit. I want to just show you a little bit how this leadership team coaching works. At times, a client will say, Paul, team's broken. They can't work together. Help. So I come in, I'll say, okay, well, let's look at some of the things. So I start with the first one on the left quadrant over here. The commission. The commission is the actual job you've been given, not cash commission, not a payment. Your commission is the entrusting of the work we've given you in your job. And this applies, again, to small startups to multinationals. Does the team understand their stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders? As we move left, we start clarifying. Team charter, I'll show you that in a few minutes. We talk about mission, the roles, and so on. How do we start clarifying the stakeholders and what's happening? At this second step here, actually the first step, I would have interviewed the team. In this case, maybe 14 people. I was working for a financial institution in the Czech Republic. I interviewed the team members to really drive down, do you understand who you serve? Do you understand who your stakeholders are? Part two, I said, okay, who are the stakeholders? Well, we have about 57 of them. Well, as you can imagine, I couldn't interview 57 people, so I interviewed about 12 to get a feel for if the stakeholders are happy. In this case, it was a finance team, a support team. So finance was supporting the organization. Moving down to co-creating, step number 3 over here. Now, how do we work together to effectively achieve our purpose? This is where the giving feedback, the communication, a little bit of what I did with Gabrielle earlier, acknowledging your peers are important. If we're not doing that, it's time for us to start doing that. And back to the Lencioni pyramid, as some of you have seen it. It's a fable, by the way, so that's why I'm suggesting you should read it. At the bottom of the pyramid is the first dysfunction, which is the absence of trust. 80% of the times when I'm called in to talk to teams, there's a trust issue or a lack of trust. So we talk about that in step 3. And step 3, we have another survey, so survey number 2, called the Team Connect 360, where now I interview all 57 stakeholders to get a second view of what's going on. And number 4, over here, we actually bring in 3 stakeholders, because now we're beginning to know what we don't know. In fact, now we want to know what we don't know a bit better, to a point of knowing what we know. So the last stage, we invite 3 stakeholders to come into a room like this. We split the team in 3, so 1 stakeholder here, 1 stakeholder there, 3. And now the stakeholders are telling us what you're still not delivering to us as per what we've agreed to. And step 5, which is in the middle, is of course the core learning. I can't go through the whole details. It's much too long, and I promised I would respect my time with Marta. But timeline with a typical systemic team coaching, which focuses on stakeholders, takes about 7 months. Ours lasted 15. Why? Because we couldn't have our meetings during COVID, so we needed to do this over the phone, which is quite difficult to do, because I can't see that conflict. I can't see that body language on video. But just goes to show you that if you're looking to work with your team, don't expect, okay, we're going to go for a team building, and we're going to go for a team effectiveness day, and then we'll come back and things will be fine. Not really, because we're animals of habit. We go back to our usual habits. we may feel good about going together and really hashing out some issues. But if you don't have someone to support you along the way, to sustain these new habits of working together, then all that is not going to really work. So one has to be patient with regards to leadership team coaching. So I just want to show you, you see the 3 points here, survey number 1, survey number 2, survey or stakeholder workshop. This is how we really endorse the importance of stakeholders. We ask 12 people, remember that first interview I did? Then we do 57 through another survey, and the fun part was to have an actual meeting with them live, because if 6 or 7 or 8 months have passed, hopefully we know a bit better what needs to be done. So I instructed the team in this last meeting, let's deal with 6 questions, 4 pain points, and what would you do in our place? Now that's what you call stakeholder involvement in helping the team generate better results. And one of the most beautiful outcomes of this, I mentioned team charter earlier, we would go over all these items. The team's purpose, pretty straightforward. The vision and mission. If I sit down with your team, we can probably crack one up in about 4 hours. It doesn't need days and weeks to talk about vision, mission, if your company doesn't have one. Core values, maximum 4, is my view on this. Stakeholders, but we will have done that homework by now, so now we know who the stakeholders are. What are the team KPIs, key performance indicators? What are the top 3 initiatives? And what are the working agreements? Working agreements is exactly that. The team has decided we're going to write how we're going to work together. So if one of your peers is really upsetting you because he's never getting back to you, well, that would be part of the working agreement. If you keep bringing back a problem, hence the dead horse metaphor in meetings, your working agreement is stop bringing back the dead horse. If you're not sharing information with your peers like you should, it's part of the working agreement. So, what issues repeatedly interfere with your team's performance would be one way of handling the working agreement. What behavior shuts you down? In other words, what behaviors really piss you off? I'm using nicer words here, but that's exactly what we want to get to the bottom of. Discuss the consequences of not adding by the working agreement. If you don't get back to me within 24 hours, like we have in the working agreement, you have to be accountable to the team. And what key agreements would we need to follow to reach our goals? Ultimately, that's the whole idea. Is after we've done the whole team charter, we have these rules on how we're going to work together. Not written by me, not written by the leader, but written by the team. The team has written this. So we had 15. Then we chopped it down to 9, and some of the ones are some of these things you're probably facing right now with your team. The first word I like, the first one is self-accountable. Lencioni would say, functional teams are self-accountable. If you're having a problem with your peer, the idea is for you and your peer to solve it without escalating to your boss. Now that's being self-accountable. All opinions are good. We respect opinions. No gossip, no back talk. We respect each other. At the end of a meeting, before we all get up and leave, there's a 5-minute rule. Okay, let's just go over again. What have we agreed on? Who's going to do what moving forward? We anticipate stakeholder needs all the time. Just because we've done this exercise I talked about earlier doesn't mean it's over. You've got to continuously anticipate stakeholder needs. We prioritize, we do our commitments. We flag down times that if we're not going to get back to you in time, I'm going to let you know. I'm going to be delayed. That's what good teams do. We assume good intention. You know, Johnny over there, he's always going to be miserable. No. Moving forward, we assume good intention. Mistakes happen, and we learn from them, as opposed to, you did this. Let's learn from them. One of my most important ones is we give each other feedback. So if one of your peers has really upset you, to tell your peer, your behavior is unacceptable and it's got to stop and I've had it. That's not exactly giving feedback. Giving feedback is setting the stage, tell your peer, I've got 1 minute to say what's on my mind. You tell your peer what's happened and how it made you feel. And you'd appreciate if you didn't do that in moving forward. So it's a giving feedback mechanism which works far better than attacking and threatening your peer. And the last one, if we're going to win, we need to celebrate together. I tested one of my clients last week. I said, so does the boss congratulate you in meetings? Pause. Do you congratulate your peers sometimes? Yes, but not in our meetings. When? Well, when we're having coffee and there's only the two of us. But why would you not congratulate your peers when you have a meeting? We don't do that here. And this is not a Romanian thing, by the way. Huh? I've been here long enough to know teams, regardless, if depending on the tone at the top, the leader at the top dribbles down to the organization to a point where people do in fact respect each other. If the boss is a tyrant, the organization will have chaos. If you've got a leader that really believes in people, as I mentioned earlier, you've got people like Gabriel who make things happen. And I know, and Marta doesn't know I was about to say this too, but I mean, it's just an organization that works. Why? Because the leader has it together. So the benefits of a high-performing team, well, stakeholders are at the focus. Stakeholders. Who do we serve? And it's a way of reducing tension. Exercises, of course, where we become leaner and more efficient. I got to make sure I'm not stuck with this client forever. I got to work myself out of that organization so that they can do this on their own. And sometimes during meetings, I will sit like a fly on the wall and just watch what's going on and going, that's not what we talked about. And they'll go, oh yeah, working agreements. So putting the team back on track. Any questions before I conclude? I know it's not an exciting topic, the stakeholder thing, but you want to try and give it some time to sort of soak in. And this serving thing is also important because you say, well, when I go to the restaurant, I get served by someone. Yeah, but when you're having guests and you're cooking a nice meal at home, you're serving your friends, and that doesn't feel weird, right? So serving your fellow teammate up, sideways, down, outside is the best way of looking at how to initiate innovative team leadership. No questions. You all understood. You all agree. I got some smiles. Okay. So get fired up, as Barack Obama would say, and serve the stakeholders in your team. So, Gabriel, Marta, thank you for inviting me once again. You want some more ideas? Check out my new book. There's a team effect. It's the book I wrote, which I gladly launched last year with the people from Biz. It's a fable about a Olympic swimmer who goes to 2 Olympics representing Canada. And I said, can I write your story? He said, yes. And the story he told me is exactly what I do in coaching, helping people. Goal setting, dealing with fear, dealing with doubt. And also the team effect. Although the hero, Chris, is a backstroke swimmer, he did rely on his team many, many times to help him get the motivation he needed. If you want some more information, I got lots of stuff on my website. A lot of the stuff I share with my clients are posted in the website or on YouTube channels. And I'm a big fan of neuromindfulness. I wanted to plug a very good partner of mine. Some of you know Veronica and Arnaud from Neuromindfulness Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, this was fun. Marta, Gabriel, thank you for inviting me. And I look forward to hearing you serving the stakeholders. Thank you.
Paul, Renaud, thank you very much.